ssic Classic Challenge Cup Finals as Warrington Wolves take on Catalans Dragons for the trophy on Saturday. The Wolves are favourites to lift the famous old trophy. Over the years the showpiece event has seen its fair share of shocks and epic encounters. Our man Nigel Wiskar takes a look at 6 of his most memorable games. Some were at the old Twin Towers, one accidentally spent in the pub, one deliberately. Watch out for the extra-large corset, dog food sandwich and his favourite weasel winger. Wigan's 8-year dominance once threatened to strangle the life out of the competition. But 3 years before that run started they had a couple of players guaranteed to bring a grin to the face of the coldest of souls. It's hard to think of a more entertaining pair of wingers than John Ferguson and Henderson Gill. Ferguson twisted like a demented weasel in the tightest of spaces, socks down. Gill boogied when he scored and had a smile that lit up the stadium. Yep, this was the greatest of finals. My memories of standing in the Hull End when they started clawing their way back still hold strong. Deafening, pints in the air stuff, before that became irritatingly fashionable. Trivia: crowd that day was 99,801, you'd think they would round it up, wouldn't you? When Saints centre Mark Lyle was in full flow he was wonderfully graceful and effortless runners. The Kiwi centre, before he hit the bargain buckets in his spell at Widnes, glided across the Wembley turf after 37 seconds of the second half to score. And with Halifax leading 19-18 with 8 minutes left he crossed again. Yet somehow Fax loose forward John Pendlebury, a balding man resembling a disgruntled mechanic, managed to knock the ball from his grasp. Alaya went over again with 3 minutes left only for it to be ruled out for a forward pass. Pockets of London were a blue and white blur of ecstasy that night. One group of fans, dressed in stockings and suspenders and sadly male, staggered past me wearing t-shirts proclaiming the enormity of one particular player's appendage. Terrifying. Trivia: Mark Alaya, still a quality cricketer in New South Wales, once umpired a friendly match between Australia and Pakistan played in the United States. It's difficult to think about the late and great Mike Gregory without remembering that lung-bursting try for Great Britain against Australia in 1988. I also have to include the time he had me in a headlock in the Globe pub opposite Baker Street a couple of hours before this game. Most rugby league fans will have darkened its doors over the years as it's a relatively safe bet for a few pints before the short hop to Wembley. Mike was refreshed and rather excited about his day off, and it's only fair to point out it was a very friendly headlock, though my ears still burn a bit. Saints were losing 26-12 at one point but famously came back with Bobby Goulding torturing Bulls fullback Nathan Graham with a series of high bombs. Robbie Paul dazzled with a hat-trick, but the best player on the park that day was another sadly missed, Steve Prescott. Watch the game again if you don't believe me. Trivia: Oasis played that night at Main Road, Manchester. Some 24 hours later they were back up on stage and the ears were burning again. The Gallaghers should have called it quits there and then. The first half of this game is as memorable as any in the competition, with the 14-1 underdogs going in at the break 11-2 up. Sadly, I missed it. The lure of a sticky carpeted pub in Hoxton called the Lion and Lamb had me in its beery, Larry clutches. By the time I fell out of a taxi close to the old Twin Towers, the Eagles were on their way to history. Forwards like Paul Carr and Rod Doyle were barely household names in their own homes. Wigan, inaugural grand final winners later that year, had the likes of Andy Farrell and Jason Robinson in their ranks. Yet under coach John Keir, Sheffield were a team with supreme belief, and in Landstad winner Mark Aston they had the club's greatest ever servant. Trivia: the Lion and Lamb is now stretching its possibilities with some lateral, modern thinking, it says here, into an artist's community. Dossers. Paul Cook divided opinions on and off the pitch but will go down as one of the most unorthodox and talented players the British game has produced. He was an unlikely figure, with a slightly dour countenance and a frame more suited to reaching for things on high shelves than unlocking defences. But that long pass could outspin Wally Lewis, and when Hull needed a hero after 23 years of silverware famine, up he stepped. His dummy and dash to score under the posts and Danny Brown's conversion sealed victory. The lead supporter next to me slumped in his seat, then swiftly cheered up by swearing at his wife. It could have been the crab sandwiches she dished up, the filling looked like pedigree chum, but he went home more miserable than when he'd turned up. Not so that man John Keir, again. When quizzed on radio how he would celebrate, the Hull coach replied, "I'm going to have a drink of Stella." Reassuringly dangerous, just like rugby league. Trivia: Warrington Wizards were knocked out in the first round 22-16 by Charleston Rovers. Warrington Wizards are a relay team of dogs from the town that chase tennis balls in a sport called flyball. Google it if you don't believe me. Castleford's a funny old place, even funnier when everyone has decamped to London. Former Bradford hooker Ian Henderson once said, "They've got rotten teeth, need a bath, run around drinking, have big beer bellies and just watch the footy." No problem with the beer and footy bit. So 3 years ago I spent cup final afternoon there when the rest of the town was at Wembley. In one pub I watched two young girls drinking goldfish bowls of something that looked like neon blue toilet cleaner, both oblivious to the game on the big screen. At halftime with Cass 16-4 down I legged to the Boot Room pub opposite the ground. There a small child played with his toy animals, including a small rhino, while his gran watched the game next to him, lager in hand. Much tugging. Big Rhino Ryan Hall grabbed 2 tries and the Lance Todd Trophy. Shoulders were shrugged, pints downed, and life went on. The corset shop in the market, XL in the window, didn't do much business that day. Trivia: British Army played British Police in the second round. The Army won 34-30 in a match which lasted 4 days. 17 hours and 25 minutes due to frequent bursts of intense violence. Don't waste your time Googling that.